Before we start this video, I think it's time for me to come clean about something. I've spent a long time thinking about how to say this. Frankly, I'm terrified to talk about it online because people on the internet are incredibly judgmental and rude. I've seen people get crucified for this. It's not the popular thing. Far from it. In fact, most people tend to find it kinda cringe. But I think it wouldn't be fair to myself or my audience, new and old, if I wasn't at least honest about who I am. And I know this is gonna turn some people off, but frankly, at some point, the dam has to break, so here goes nothing. I like Gracie Abrams.
She's not very talented. She's not very talented, and that sounds mean.
They all have something to lose. To put Gracie in that category is frankly insulting.
So shamelessly rips off Ethel Cain.
Girl, breathe! Does she have a CPAP machine?
Which is why this Gracie Abrams album is not good.
What? Her music scratches #the itch. I'm not sorry. I used to rationalize it with, well, now that I avoid Taylor Swift, I need to find a new white girl that makes shallow, vapid pop music to fill that void. But then she dropped Hit the Wall, her lead single off of her new record, Daughter from Hell, and Gracie Abrams, the artist, finally clicked for me. It especially was in the final verse when she sang,
"You'll bend to my silence, it's so loud, and then you'll lose me to the crowd."
Now, this isn't a particularly revolutionary lyric. I mean, loud silence is a metaphor as old as time, but the way it's executed in the context of the song and the way her voice just wavers with such sadness makes it hit like a semi-truck. On first listen, I got super emotional. And for someone who prides themselves on having great taste, that's a pretty alarming experience to have. I mean, fuck, my whole life people have passed me the aux cord because they can trust that I can curate a vibe. My playlist's immaculate. My record collection, spotless. So where does this 5'7" Nepobaby get the right to make me feel like this? It is not cool to like Gracie Abrams. Cool people with great taste don't listen to her. In fact, they rebuke her. They laugh at her breathy vocals, rich daddy, and waifish frame. So why the hell am I so compelled by Daughter from Hell, her latest record? Why am I listening to Where Do We Go Now and I Knew It, I Know You on repeat? Am I cringe? Oh God. Oh no! Gracie Abrams is fascinating. She is the final boss of nepotism discourse, the ultimate industry plant. The internet has no problem making fun of her. Most critics and tastemakers routinely tear her apart. So if she really is that bad, why does she have such a strong following? If she really sucks, why is there a demand for an arena tour? Surely it can't just be bots and astroturfing, right? Like, I don't believe her career is bought out in the slightest. The Look at My Life tour, beginning in December of 2026, has several incredible musical acts opening for it. Holly Humberstone, Delwater Gap, Rachel Chinariri, all of which, these are artists that I would consider to be really great musicians and musical acts. I don't think they would willingly work with her if they didn't consider her to be at least somewhat in alignment with their artistic vision. White mediocrity is rewarded in this economy. I mean, Justin Bieber can literally walk out in a polo shirt and guitar for the FIFA World Cup finale performance and get mountains of praise for it. In contrast, women of color like Rina Sawayama, Ray, and Arlo Parks put out these deeply creative, emotionally satisfying works with only like a quarter of the exposure and support. But here is a profound question. Is Gracie Abrams actually mediocre? No, like seriously, is she actually that mid, that bad, or are we letting our preconceived biases cloud our judgment? In today's video, I want to take a long look at Miss Abrams. We're gonna explore the discourse around her and her art and see what we can learn. How do we measure the quality of art? Does privilege negate skill? What about critics? Where do they fit into all of this? What the fuck even is slop? Can it really be defined? And most importantly, is all of this discourse just an elaborate excuse to be openly misogynistic? All of this and more on the Archie Merc YouTube channel. Once hailed the rise of a new RPDR icon, now it's whatever the fuck I want it to be. Too bad, fat online. You can't make me dance for you. I'm gonna make whatever fucking shit I want, and you can't stop me. Ah!
Side A, the Nepobaby.
One of the oldest forms of discourse in entertainment is nepotism. These days, its most common form takes place in the form of Nepobaby, which Lindsay Lowe describes in a December 2022 article for Today.com as
The offspring of a famous person who follows their parent into the creative industries and often is met with success despite the competition.
In fact, Vulture magazine did an entire spread that same December titled The Year of the Nepobaby, in which they have an article that basically describes their entire in-house taxonomy of these kids in the industry. For example, Vulture categorizes younger Gen Z Nepobabies as on the come up. These creatives are just getting their careers started, and that list includes the likes of Cooper Hoffman, Mason Gooding, and Gracie Abrams. In contrast, Vulture's higher tier of Nepobaby is platinum grade, where you've formed a career that basically stands on its own, and this includes Miley Cyrus, Dakota Johnson, and Zoe Kravitz. If you're lucky enough, people forget you have famous parents altogether. Like when people talk about Gwyneth Paltrow, you don't hear them say, OMG, I can't believe she's getting all these opportunities. She's just lucky that her daddy's a famous director. No, nobody cares that Gwyneth Paltrow is a Nepobaby anymore. They care that she did propaganda for Israel.
There's a reason the world's most iconic buildings are by a park. 51 Park.
New York?
Herzliya. Israel.
I swear to God, the moment that I found out Gracie Abrams was pro-Palestine, that made me respect her like 10 times more. Say what you will, but I personally prefer white bread with a conscience over whatever fuckshit Goop puts out. Nepotism is nothing new in entertainment. Hell, it's all over the drag world. The concept of a drag house has existed as long as the art form. And these days, who your drag family is can make or break your career. Think about the House of Dion, a Florida-based drag family that features Drag Race alumni Athena Dion, Morphine Love Dion, and Juicy Love Dion. Even their extended family, Mia Starr, made it onto the show. Aside from interpersonal benefits, drag families offer social credit. If you're a Davenport, well, that name carries weight. People know that you're from a prestigious family. These connections are essential, even in queer entertainment. Getting opportunities is not just about the quality of your art, it's who you know. That's kind of the name of the game in any professional space, right? Even something as basic as getting a day job becomes so much easier if you have inside connections, and that becomes especially true if those connections are familial. In that respect, Gracie Abrams lucked the fuck out in the nepotism lottery. Her dad, J.J. Abrams, is one of the most well-known directors in Hollywood. Look, they gave him a legacy franchise to ruin.
Somehow Palpatine returned. Oh, Lord. Again. A fucking game.
Her mother, Katie McGrath, is also a television producer. Her family has so much influence in the entertainment sphere that her career might as well not be a journey of knocking doors down, but lightly flicking them open. Abrams has also appeared to have her widespread success happen pretty easily. In 2020, her song I Miss You, I'm Sorry went viral. She quickly attracted the attention of producer and The National member Aaron Dessner, most famous for working with Taylor Swift, her biggest influence. She would later go on to open for her on the goddamn Eras Tour. I actually got to see her perform at night 5 of the LA tours for the Eras Tour, and she is much better live. I think I was the only person in the crowd who knew all the words to every song she sang, but hey, you can't win them all. Oh, and this was during the Good Riddance era, by the way, before she went viral with That's So True and I Love You, I'm Sorry. I was there when the old magic was written. She was later christened a Tay daughter alongside Sabrina Carpenter later that year, and she would then go on to open for the rest of the 2024 North American dates of Taylor's tour. There seems to be this proportional effect surrounding Abrams. The more success she sees, the greater the backlash. This came to a boiling point at the end of 2024 when her song, That's So True, a deluxe track off of The Secret of Us, her sophomore record, went mega viral. I would be a millionaire if I had $1 for every time I saw someone say, this song is so fucking bad, why do I like it so much? If you put your finger on the Abrams discourse, the most common sentiment appears to be, I can't believe someone so mediocre / bad, depending on who you ask, is getting so much success, she doesn't deserve it. Now, I hate to be the fun police here. I mean, it is incredibly cathartic to tear down mediocrity in entertainment, but mediocrity is in the eye of the beholder. And while I'm not claiming that Abrams is making the most mind-bending music in the world, there are far more middling artists with greater socio-political clout. There are still confirmed abusers with large careers. I mean, hello, Chris Brown is still at large. When it comes to the distaste for Nepo babies, I think writer Sarah John said it best in a February 2023 article for Teen Vogue.
The Nepo baby discussion isn't really about the Nepo babies at all. It's about what they represent. The numerous, unfair obstacles we place in front of some people instead of others, and the steps we should take to dismantle them.
Nepo babies are a symbol of power and wealth. Power and wealth that most people, especially black and brown folk, are systematically denied. The vast majority of the Nepo babies in that Vulture article are white and cisgender, in addition to coming from affluent families. I'd also venture to say that a lot of the discourse around Nepo babies is probably rooted in some form of subconscious envy. However, it is not socially acceptable to envy the likes of Abrams at all, so we sublimate those feelings into more highbrow aesthetic criticism or noble arguments. That's not to say that we shouldn't seek to critique and dismantle systems of power that favor the privileged. No, I am not saying that, but what I am saying is there is a very big difference between centering systems and centering people in discourse. It is fully okay to not fuck with a Nepo baby. Like, if your first instinct when looking at Abrams is to go, nah, I don't really fuck with that, I prefer different kinds of artists, that's fully okay. No one is saying you have to like her. But I also think it is quite dismissive of her creativity, humanity, and hard work if we just write her off as a Nepo baby and leave it at that. Sure, she might have a ton of resources at her disposal. I for sure wish I had that, but she's still an artist. A creative, a musician, a singer, a songwriter. She still has to work at her craft. She still has to create and edit these songs, produce them. She still has to train and strengthen her voice, of which there is noticeable improvement between her 3 albums. I do agree that it doesn't appear that there is a sense of urgency with her creative process or her art. I mean, she literally has so many safety nets at her disposal that she has all the time in the world to create and experiment and fall flat on her face. So that might explain why a lot of her art might feel a little stagnant. However, if we were in her shoes, would we not do the same thing? Take our time with the art and take advantage of the privileges we have? I wonder if a reason why people don't like Abrams is because they're looking at someone who is still actively trying to get good at what they do, and the disproportion of the level of quality of work to the level of success she has causes dissonance. But you know what? Art isn't a competition. I mean, that's what Kesha said in Spring Breakers, right? Some people are more naturally adept at music, but what I would argue is more important is passion. And Abrams certainly seems to have that. Like, girl, we can't all be Prince or Freddie Mercury or Olivia Rodrigo. We can't all come out of the womb fully formed. I would not categorize Abrams as a prodigy. She is no Jimi Hendrix, but I don't want her to be Jimi Hendrix. I want her to be Gracie Abrams. Sure, she wears her influences on her sleeve. She's a musician. Sure, she might still be figuring out what makes Gracie Abrams the artist. Sure, she might absolutely have a plethora of resources and privileges that other marginalized artists don't get to have. All of this can be true, and we can still acknowledge that she's putting in the work. I also think it's worth noting that most people who are famous got there because of who they know. If there isn't nepotism, there certainly is some level of industry connection at play. Chappell Roan seemingly blew up overnight due to a collection of clips from Coachella 2024, but she also got there because she works with Dan Nigro, Olivia Rodrigo's sole producer and collaborator. Rodrigo's endorsement of Roan over the years, especially having her open for the Sour and Guts tours, is critical in the way she was able to gain favor with the public. Rodrigo is also an industry baby. She heavily pursued a career in music, but from a very early age. Her first breakout moment was an acting role in Disney Channel's Bizaardvark in 2016. And before Driver's License took over the world in 2021, she already had a pretty huge following from her time on High School the Musical, the series. That is an awful show name. Why did they name it that? The people who blow up overnight do so because of who they know. It's just about right time, right place. It rarely, if ever, is truly organic. This is also true for their male counterparts. This is not just a women in music thing. Justin Bieber was famously scouted by now disgraced Zionist shitbag Scooter Braun. Ed Sheeran got the Taylor Swift seal of approval. I could go on. It really does frustrate me the way that art is so heavily gatekept based on your identity, your race, gender, privilege, class, sexuality, physical ability. There are so many talented artists from marginalized backgrounds that I also want to have a breakout moment. By the way, drop your favorites in the comments section below. Let's all help to get these artists out there and help them blow up. But let's also take a step back. Why does notoriety and fame even matter? Nepobaby discourse often goes like this. Artist X has famous parents, but work is usually bad to mid, therefore X artist doesn't deserve their success. I hate to be that person, but this is a deeply capitalist view of art. Success is equated with wealth, capital, and power. I believe that everyone, regardless of background, should have access to the same resources regardless of where they come from. But let's also not pretend that there isn't some desire to see our favorites become wealthy and powerful because we ourselves want to become wealthy and powerful. In a September 2018 study for the Journal of Behavioral Addictions, associate psychology professor for Leuven University Anya Silla et al. Surveyed over 400 Hungarian adults and adolescents to understand how celebrity worship and parasocialism influence negative behaviors such as compulsive internet use, maladaptive daydreaming, and desire for fame. In their findings, Silla et al. Said,
a positive relationship was found between celebrity worship and desire for fame, indicating that those who find celebrities' lifestyles appealing to them and wish to be recognized have a higher tendency to worship celebrities.
Furthermore, when comparing and contrasting different studies around the world, they found that more intense levels of celebrity worship or compulsive celebrity worship are in fact tied to narcissism and high self-esteem. People that experience this are not even remotely self-aware of the harm that these behaviors are causing themselves or their community. Obviously, the more extreme the worship, the more likely there is mental illness present, but I do believe that to some degree, those of us that partake in stan culture and celebrity worship do have some kind of fantasy of wealth and power. And because us average civilians will never reach that, at least not likely in our lifetimes, we project that will to power onto our idols. Nepotism discourse seems to be a complex cocktail of negative emotions, feelings of injustice towards a broken system, envy of the rich and powerful, rage, resentment, and parasocial delusion. I don't think we as a collective public have yet reached the level of self-awareness needed to have these conversations around dismantling and dissecting this shitty system. And that is in no small part because most of us don't have the resources and time and bandwidth to educate ourselves about the ways white, cis, heteropatriarchal capitalism is so intimately intertwined with the entertainment industry. And so, we shift the blame onto individual actors. I've been holding this in for years, but I am really fucking tired of the way we talk about art as if it is a game to be won. Music is one of the most primal expressions of the human experience. There is no winner or loser, it just is. Truly, who cares if Gracie Abrams is more famous than whoever? And I get it. I wish more people knew about the great works of Underscores, Yola, and Michael Medrano. One of my favorite pop songs to come out this year is a song called Mosh Pit by Maris. It is one of the most exciting pop music pieces I have heard in a very long time, and it has like under 1 million streams on Spotify. Should I be spending my finite time on God's green earth complaining about a Nepobaby outselling an arena tour over my favorite, or should I be spending that time dedicated towards uplifting and supporting the art and work that I love? Unjust systems can absolutely be critiqued and dismantled without attacking the people within it. Well, the good faith actors at least. As the late progressive political commentator Michael Brooks once said, "Be kind to people, be ruthless with systems." Of course, there are obvious exceptions to this, and that is a separate video essay in itself. Titans like Taylor Swift and Jay-Z have basically transcended the label of individual artist into cultural movers and corporate entities that criticizing them basically is less about the music and more so about understanding structures of business and power. Which brings me to the heart of the matter. I am not remotely convinced that most people that shit on Gracie Abrams actually listen to her music. So let's talk about the art now.
Side B. The Slop Artist.
One of the most common words used to describe Abrams' music is slop. What does that even mean? That seems like quite the nebulous and reductive term to use to describe a human's hard work. Where does this even come from? At the end of 2025, Merriam-Webster Dictionary said that slop was their word of the year. Unfortunately, it is one of those buzzwords that everyone uses that no one really understands what it means or how it's properly defined. Like media literacy, everyone's saying, oh my god, media literacy is in crisis, we need to fix the media literacy problem, and then it's just like a bunch of terminally online bozos arguing over a Letterboxd review. That's super fucking coconuts. You can't trust a straight man to understand Jordan Peele's Nope. That's so true. For argument's sake, let's define slop. In a December 2025 article for NBC, senior breaking news editor Doa Madani reported on Merriam-Webster saying,
The dictionary publisher defined it as digital content low of quality that is produced usually in quantity by means of artificial intelligence, and said it reflected the absurd videos, off-kilter advertising images, cheesy propaganda, fake news that looks pretty real, and junky AI-written books that have invaded people's social media feeds this year.
We're gonna use this as a jumping off point. In order for something to qualify as slop, I believe it has to be 1. Low quality, 2. Generated by AI, 3. Uncanny or absurd. I'd argue that it has to meet at least 2 of the 3 criteria to qualify. Of course, a lot of things made by AI are going to be low quality and absurd, but there are plenty of human-made products and media that can be qualified as slop. Think of a lot of children's television, like Cocomelon and Paw Patrol. These are things that I would absolutely categorize as fitting the mold. Music, though, is much harder to categorize. Like, remember when Lord's Solar Power came out? Everyone says it's great now, but I was on the ground when it was widely panned by the public. Fans were completely split down the middle on it. Of course, as a hot person with incredible taste, I got it from the jump, but there are plenty of other hot people with incredible taste that don't like it, didn't like it, and still never will. For every hater of The Life of a Showgirl, I can't believe I'm saying this, there's gonna be someone saying it's Taylor Swift's best album. Additionally, sometimes the best music is incredibly absurd. The entire PC Music Collective, like Sophie, A.G. Cook, Cutie, and Hannah Diamond, all create Uncanny Valley top 40 pop music. Hyperpop, my favorite genre of music, was once defined by its synthetic sound and a robot's idea of pop music. In retrospect, I'm glad the genre has since evolved because, oh boy, since the advent of or I guess maybe not advent, but the terror, the Pandora's box that has been unleashed upon the world that is generative AI would make navigating that scene my own personal hell. So despite initial impressions, slop is not so easily categorized. Honestly, it kind of offends me when people use that term to describe art that they simply don't like. Like, sure, Colleen Hoover novels are problematic garbage, but I don't think I'd categorize them as slop. Like, that's AI-generated Harry Potter fanfiction. Like, for me, the only human-made musical acts today that I would actively consider making slop are like Ed Sheeran post-Divide and Cat's Eye post-Manon hiatus. Listen, all I'm saying is Adele dodged a bullet. Stream KGB. Stream Sex on the Beat. I think it's important as enjoyers of art to be more specific in the language we use when criticizing media. And this brings us back to Abrams. How would you describe her music? Wistful, bland, emotive, technically impressive? These are phrases that are far more specific in the qualities they're pointing out. When something is emotive, it's potent with feeling. When something is bland, that tells me it's listless, uninteresting. To me, slop doesn't really convey much of a quality, but more so a vibe. A bad vibe, but still just a vibe. I think the reason why people call Abrams' music slop is because, at least to them, it feels generic, like anyone could make it. I've seen similar attacks leveled against Olivia Dean, commonly referring to her music as matcha music. However, it is more common to see people criticizing Abrams for her background rather than her music. And like, no duh, if you don't like someone, you're not gonna acquaint yourself with their music. Time is also a finite resource. It is a privilege to be able to sit down and listen to full bodies of work. Not everyone has the capacity, especially if you're marginalized, to listen to every single new release. Also, different forms of media speak to different kinds of people. I'm an audiophile. I love music, but There are also other people that are cinephiles. They prefer film and television over sitting down and listening to a record. Discussions around music are so much harder to measure than something like a book. You can't passively receive a film, no matter how hard Netflix tries, or a piece of text in the same way that you can a song in a coffee shop. It's easier to clock someone for talking out of their ass about Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey than, say, an individual musician. Chances are, if you've been in a public space or scrolled on TikTok, you've probably heard, "I love you, I'm sorry," and that's so true. And for some people, these brief encounters are enough to completely turn them off from Abrams altogether. However, I am here to act as Miss Abrams' defense attorney. So, as someone who is intimately familiar with her work, let me at least try to defend her from bad faith criticism.
Ugh, Gracie's voice sucks.
Well, that's just the blunt way of putting it. Now, I'm not gonna come on here and lie to you that Gracie Abrams is a vocalist, and neither will she. Abrams' vocal range only spans a few octaves, and the timbre of her voice is nasally, tinny, and cool. She is far from the first white girl that makes moody music to have this vocal style. Phoebe Bridgers and Billie Eilish come to mind as well. Funnily enough, people have used this exact same criticism to bash the latter. However, like Abrams, Eilish's voice has improved over the years, most dramatically demonstrated on her sophomore record's title track, Happier Than Ever, when on the climax of the song she belts, "Just fucking leave me alone." When it comes to vocals, you're more likely to tend to gravitate away from Abrams if you prefer a more full-bodied and rich sound, a larger range, more technical prowess. And that is perfectly valid. But for what it's worth, I think her voice sounds so much richer on Daughter from Hell than any song off of Minor and Good Riddance. Fuck, I'd even say she's greatly improved on her sophomore record. I mean, have you watched the live studio recording of Free Now? Devastating. I tend to judge the quality of an artist's voice based on how similar or better it sounds from the studio version. Ray, one of my absolute favorite vocalists, sounds just as good, if not better, than her studio recordings. Lucy Dacus is another great example of this. Likewise, Abrams tends to sound just as good, if not better, live. In contrast, Morgan Wallen never sounds better than his studio recordings. Actually, he never sounds good at all. Take that man's record deal away from him. For me, it's not about technical skill, but how well you're able to carry your own tune. And this excludes auto-tune because I do believe that it is a valid creative choice. I personally will not tolerate any Charlie XCX slander in my comment section. I'm not gonna sit here and claim she's God's gift to singing, but like, you don't have to like her vocal style, just don't be a dick about it, okay?
God, her music is so derivative.
It is no secret that artists wear their influences on their sleeve. I mean, for fuck's sake, if I got a nickel for every time someone left a comment ContraPoint dupe on my videos, feels good that I'm finally addressing this. Clearing the air. And what about it? Every goddamn video essayist pulls from Jenny Nicholson or Natalie Wynn. Get over it! Abrams has spoken pretty openly that Swift is her biggest influence. In his review of Daughter from Hell, music critic and entertainment journalist Anthony Fantano, and we'll come back to him, criticized the record for being a Swift knockoff.
Because now Gracie is sounding more like Taylor than she ever has. But it's not only just kind of copying Taylor Swift so blatantly and so unabashedly that makes this record feel so redundant and so boring and so basic.
Okay, but why? Why does it sound like Taylor? Is it because she so closely works with Aaron Dessner? Well, that would be stupid, because every Big Red Machine project or the national record would then end up being a Folklore or Evermore knockoff, and the inverse could also be argued. Is it because Abrams' style of songwriting is diaristic as well? Taylor was far from the first singer-songwriter to master confessional songwriting. I mean, hello, SZA, Bruce Springsteen, Joni Mitchell, doth For Free not ring a bell? And if we're gonna dig at Abrams for her lyricism, I do think she has strong writing chops. Here are some of my personal favorite lyrics of hers.
And I used to pretend that it didn't feel evil. Your light of a million suns burns through people and bridges and cities until ash covers ground. I slowly moved into your house. All of my dark blue covered it for you, but I'm just so embarrassed now. If you feel like falling, catch me on the way down, and I'll have a drink wistfully lean out my window and watch the sun set on the lake.
These are more than competent lyrics that emote resentment, misery, longing, and wistfulness. I do think Abrams could improve on her specificity. Like, she does have rhyme structure, emotion, and imagery down. I would like to see her pull from more specific details of these experiences to help us further immerse her in her world. For instance, what lake are we gazing at? What kind of house is it? What are the glorified tomes sitting on the side of his bed? Regardless, she seems pretty adept at writing songs. The potential for greatness is definitely there. I also think she makes her best songs like Risk, That's So True, and I Knew It I Know You with Audrey Hobart, fellow indie pop musician, and also her childhood best friend, and probably the next big thing to happen in music. She only worked on one song off of Daughter from Hell, Minibar, and I think that's a shame. I think they play off each other's lyrical sensibilities very well, and I would like to see them further collaborate more on future projects. The issue I find with thing derivative criticism is that it never amounts to more than just, this sounds like something else I know, but worse. And I get that, but if you push back like I did and ask, how, you end up in this subjective, cyclical argument. There are absolutely instances where popular music motifs and genres can be poorly replicated, but I would argue that's less about style and more about cultural divorce. For example, when trap became the dominant influence of pop music from 2017 to 2020, you had all of these white artists pulling out the 808 kick drums and staccato hi-hats. The problem with that, though, is it was often a fundamental misunderstanding of what trap even is. It's not just a subgenre, it's a cultural expression, a lifestyle. In a November 2022 article for Snob Hop, a media publication dedicated to Black culture, hip-hop, and marketing, writer and founder John Wright discussed the extensive history of the genre, from its origins to initial rise to popularity thanks to the Atlanta hip-hop scene. When talking about its breakout, Wright said,
"All of a sudden, people who'd never heard of Gucci Mane or 2 Chainz were hearing the music blaring in the clubs. Not just hip-hop clubs, but worldwide. The result? Trap music became known as trap. EDM producers and DJs outside of the culture latched onto the sound created by trap producers and distilled that into something that they could replicate. Although it's not really quote-unquote trap music, they brought the sound to audiences who probably don't like rap music."
Trap, like many genres that come from Black culture, are often taken out of context in pop. Much of hip-hop itself is an expression of the disparity of wealth and power and privilege between Black Americans and the rest of the country. If Gracie were to put out a record that is heavily trap influenced, I do think derivative might actually be the appropriate word to use to describe it. But that's not what she's doing on any of her albums, not in the slightest. Personally, I don't think her music sounds like Swift. I think it just sounds like her. And if you disagree, that's fine. That's your opinion, but just like, whatever, man. Next!
Bruh, she's just like so mid.
Ah, yes. My least favorite word in the English language. Mid. We talked about this in the last section, but mediocrity truly is in the eye of the beholder. It's incredibly subjective, based on a myriad of things. Taste, lived experience, identity. To be mid is truly just a matter of preference. And these days, the most offensive thing a popular artist can be is mediocre. If you're actively bad at what you do, well then you gain a lolcow cult following, like American socialite and shitty opera singer Florence Foster Jenkins. You might even be considered avant-garde, ahead of your time. If you're great at what you do, well then you've earned your way to the top, to be the it girl, the HBIC. But if you're a woman and you're mediocre and you're selling out arenas, good luck, Charlie. And if you're mediocre, a woman selling out arenas, and a Nepobaby, you can see why Twitter pulls out the guillotine. There are objective qualities that we can measure in music. It is objectively impressive that Eddie Van Halen can shred on the guitar like that. It is objectively impressive that Ariana Grande has a 4-octave vocal range. It is objectively impressive that Janet Jackson can dance with such precision. Yes, all of these things are undeniably true, and someone will still look at Ariana Grande and say she's mid. They'll say that Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, is a chop. I once had a roommate that said Purple Rain is boring. Purple Rain. Like, one of the greatest songs of all time is boring. fucking Gen Z men. Even the most creative, exciting, interesting acts will leave people shrugging. It's almost as if none of this really matters and we're arguing over stupid shit that bears little to no socio-political consequence. Like, is disliking Gracie Abrams based? No. It's not an actionable political stance. It's a subjective opinion. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, are we really so high-minded, aesthetically cultivated, or perfect with great taste if we orate in a 280 character post that Gracie Abrams is mid, that she's a nepo baby with no talent, or do you just hate women? Surely it can't be that. Oh, come on! No, I don't believe that the vast majority of people that shit on Abrams actually listen to her music. And if you don't want to, that's fine, but just say she's not for you and move on. And people, fans or not, play a huge role in an artist's success. I would know. I'm a content creator. The algorithm favors engagement and interaction and mentions. And the more mentions she gets, the more exposure she has, the more the algorithm pushes her. Like, if you really want Gracie Abrams gone, make like the meme and block her. Swear to God, y'all are just playing yourselves at this point. I don't know, wouldn't it be better if we spent more time like comparing notes and lifting up the artists we love and talking about art for art's sake? Fuck that. I'm a high-minded aesthete who uses stan culture to mask my fragile ego. But for people who don't seem to really listen to her, people seem to be pretty confident in their takes on Abrams and her music. So if they're not the most informed on the subject, where do they get their opinions from?
Side C. The Critic.
I want to make a small tangent on content here. Stay with me. In my video on Charlie Kirk, I mentioned one of the issues I have with video essays is that there's this frustrating feedback loop where people create entertaining and educating content only for it to be passively consumed. I've sat with this take over time and I've kind of just realized that's just generally an issue with content altogether. And I'm guilty of this too. Like, sometimes I really just prefer an easy viewing experience while I'm doing something like cooking or trying and failing to climb the ladder in Pokemon Champions. One of my other current issues with our current content ecosystem is that we tend to gravitate towards content that does not challenge, but confirm. There have been numerous studies put out in the last couple years, such as one published by Sakhin Magdil et al. In November 2021 for the Journal of Information System Frontiers, showing how confirmation bias on social media negatively influences polarization. These algorithmically influenced echo chambers that further inflame the intensity of an opinion or solidify a bias or perspective, even if it is completely untrue or against our best interests. The most extreme examples of this exist in politics. I mean, just look at anyone who's been red-pilled in the last decade. However, I do think this also applies to pop music and criticism. I mean, if you're a hater of Tate McRae, chances are you liking a hate post against her will likely expose you to more perspectives of the same caliber. These takes can absolutely be influenced by our peers. I mean, herd mentality is a huge problem in pop music discourse, but I also think internet personalities play a huge role as well. And these parasocial relationships with influencers can bear heavy consequences on our day-to-day lives. Writer Ganga Dhirupal discusses the negative aspects of this in a December 2022 article for the Healthcare Review at Cornell University.
If a media influencer models unhealthy behavior, viewers adopting that behavior would harm their mental and possibly physical health. Negative messages regarding materialism or ideal body images diminish viewers' self-esteem, making them susceptible to developing eating disorders, unhealthy spending habits, and more.
Those we form parasocial connections with can absolutely influence our perspectives on the world, because even if they're far from informed, we identify with what we can relate to. Of course, there are also positive versions of this. One of my favorite recent examples is Olivia Rodrigo's work with Planned Parenthood. Because she is so widely outspoken about reproductive health care, her fan base is more likely to take interest in this issue and learn about the various ways the Trump administration is attacking systematically birthing bodies. It's not black and white, but it is worth definitely acknowledging that you are more likely to adopt someone's tastes, beliefs, and worldview if you like and respect their work and themselves. This could not be more true with music, and thus enters the role of the internet critic. I want to start by saying we need critics. Critics are very important. I deeply reject this trend of artists and creatives trying to disparage and diminish the value of a critic's work. They play such an important role in appraising and analyzing art, adding nuance to discourse, and calling out bullshit. Yeah, Godly XCX once wore a shirt that says they don't build statues of critics, but in that same regard, an artist cannot reach icon status if there aren't critics there to help them refine their work. So I want to make it clear, when I am criticizing the modern critic, I am very aware of the fact of this trend, and I do not want to minimize their work. However, I also can't help but notice that there are some issues at hand. It's time to unpin the needle drop conversation. For the uninitiated, Anthony Fantano is an internet music critic that has been influential in leading the medium of music criticism into the digital age. He's been doing reviews on YouTube since 2009, and before that, his project existed on the Connecticut Public Radio in 2007. His main channel has over 3 million subscribers. I mean, Julian Casablancas, frontman of The Strokes, name-dropped him, negatively, in their latest album. Charlie XCX brought him on for a parody cameo in her new movie, The Moment. Like, this man is known. And I must confess, I do enjoy his work. Even if I disagree with the vast majority of his reviews, I do understand that his contributions to music criticism in the internet age are invaluable. However, it is also pretty obvious that this man comes in with pretty heavily built-in biases. And what journalist doesn't, but this also can become pretty dicey when parasocialism is involved. More on that in just a second. It is apparent that when he doesn't like an artist very much, he tends to criticize them more harshly, and sometimes that is absolutely warranted, like when he gave Vultures 1 by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign an unreviewable 1, spending most of that video criticizing the anti-Semitic views in the music and the problematic fandom surrounding him. But I also notice sometimes that harshness just does not feel warranted. Like, if you want to give The Great Impersonator by Halsey a decent 1, more power to you. A numerical score at the end of the day doesn't really amount to much, but saying an album about a woman's struggle with cancer, almost dying from it, and trying to piece together her last words in case she loses the battle, suffers from main character syndrome is crazy, no matter how well the argument is backed up. If you think the quality of the music is bad, that's fine. If you think the lyrics are too edgy, that is fine. No one is asking you to like it. And I agree that making art about important topics does not mean the art itself is going to be important. But I also think there is a way, especially when putting it into perspective, to write reviews about music that does not blur the line with jabbing at someone's character. Obvious exceptions apply. And when it comes to Abrams, Fantano has been less than kind in his reviews, and his audience seems to more or less adopt that attitude.
She can cry into her daddy's $100 bills. Not a single one of us will give a shit. Not even in the top 3 worst things J.J. Abrams has made. Rich people, rich problems, little talent, big sales, little to remember. Forgotten in time as trash pop. Gracie Abrams' album not good. Water found in the ocean.
I am not saying it is inherently misogynistic or a character flaw to say her music is not good. But sometimes when I watch his reviews, there are moments where I have a hard time distinguishing between criticism of the art and attacking someone's character. I wonder if that's also why so many musicians in the industry are butthurt about him. It's because they too cannot tell if they're criticizing the art or attacking them personally. This is one of my biggest gripes with music criticism in general. Bias is impossible to divorce. Yes, there are plenty of music critics that are notorious for glazing their faves. I mean, just look at anything Rob Sheffield has put out about Taylor Swift, but the inverse is also true. If we don't care for someone, that does shape the way we perceive their art. And this becomes increasingly problematic when a person of influence has a fan base. Most people who watch his reviews, myself included, do not listen to every single thing he puts out on the channel. And my guess is that they either form or further confirm their own opinions about this art that they don't engage with based on whatever numerical score that he gives. A light 7, a strong to decent 3. And to his credit, he does put, well, in the description, so it's not super viewable, but hey, at least it's there. Y'all know this is just my opinion, right? There are plenty of aspects to his work that is great. It is very clear that he has a deep understanding of music production and theory. It's clear that he has a very strong passion for the art form. As for his fan base, highly doubtful. There is this whole genre of male music reactor, not necessarily saying that he falls into this category, but in general, there is this subgenre where a white cishet guy logs onto, say, Twitch or TikTok and reacts along to things with a snarky, borderline misogynistic audience. You know who I'm talking about. Allegedly. Shout out to H.G. Hayes, though. That man is a god. Like, that total ray of sunshine. Love that guy. And to be clear, the role of tastemaker is to help inform someone's tastes. That is part of the job. But I do worry that a lot of people that form these parasocial connections engage with these people without experiencing the art for themselves. They skip the part of acquainting themselves with the work and just form their opinion based on confirmation bias. Okay, I've said my piece about Fantano. Who's next? Zachary Haran, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. More commonly known as the Swiftologist, began his career on YouTube in July 2020 with his reaction video to Folklore. Since then, he has built an extensive career, pivoting from Taylor Swift historian to general pop culture critic. From watching his work over the years, it is apparent that his past experience in journalism, especially with Singaporean media publication Rice Media, has heavily influenced his style. Like with Fantano, there are aspects to his work that I do like. I think it is incredibly based that he is critical of his idol. More people should be Tay critical. And I think he is at his best when he turns his sharp ire against men in the industry. Period. Like, his takedown of Ed Sheeran is one of my favorite videos ever. Like, I left a nice comment on it. It's interesting, it's analytical, it's entertaining, it's cathartic. However, it is also hard to tell where the line is drawn between criticizing the art and attacking a person. Maybe even more so in his case, because all of his work seems to be shrouded in snark and condescension. At least, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. I'm going to use his review of Daughter from Hell as a general illustrator for my issues with his work. Please take it with a grain of salt.
Daughter from Hell, but really, it's Songwriter from Hell, because I can't believe that Gracie Abrams has arrived at her third album with even less to say.
Okay, we are off to a strong start. I don't think this is exactly what I would call constructive criticism, no?
You might come away from their best work feeling embarrassed, angry, or totally seen and heard like you've never felt before. They provoke an emotional response in you. Carly Simon, Stevie Nicks, Taylor Swift, SZA, Joni Mitchell. They all have something to lose. To put Gracie in that category is frankly insulting.
And I mean, there are moments in this review when he seems to be making genuinely well-articulated arguments.
It's smoke and mirrors. Confessional writing with nothing revealed. The effect is a particularly robotic monotony. It doesn't help that Aaron Dessner is her main collaborator here. His instincts are to sprawl, and Gracie is an artist who desperately needs constraint. A sharper editor would push her to cut and clarify and go deeper instead of just going longer.
I feel lured in, like we're finally going somewhere, we're finally making an astute observation, and then he pulls shit like this.
But instead of creating characters that feel alive in her lyrics, she defaults to the blandest of metaphor. Used to be your rock, but now I'm a hard place, or I'm a party, you're invited. You ring my bell, I miss you.
Is this effective journalism? Like, is this necessary? Am I supposed to take you seriously as a critic after looking at that? Or is this just content? Derogatory. Obviously, this isn't indicative of his entire oeuvre, but this one review, at least for me, illustrates a lot of the issues that I do have with the current state of music criticism. It caters to clickbait and engagement, not thoughtful dialogue. A lot of it just feels, especially this video, mean-spirited. You know, tone does a lot for helping someone receive constructive criticism. Do the internet critics evaluating Abrams' work actually want her to get better? Or do they smell blood in the water and want to go in for the kill? Do they want to shame her out of a career? If I were in Abrams' shoes and I watched that review, I'd feel like shit. And like, don't coddle the girl. She deserves better. She's a grown-ass adult. But like, come on, man. I worry that a lot of the Swiftologist followers, like Fantano's, subconsciously or not, crave and covet the aesthetic of thoughtful aesthetic criticism and critique without doing any of the intense work of actually informing themselves on the subject matter. They want confirmation bias from someone they respect, not to actually be challenged or educated. Also, please don't leave any hateful comments towards either party in my comments section here. My criticism is not your green flag to go ahead and be a dick. And especially towards Zach, because he has been the victim of a lot of undue, unnecessary homophobia. And honestly, I'd buy him a drink as an apology for that. Regardless, while I find that a lot of his arguments are well written and spoken, performed, I don't feel like, or at least in my perspective, that there seems to be a deeper understanding or intimate knowledge of the music making process. At least what I can see. Personally, I think he would be much stronger of a critic if he actually were to, make something. I would love to see him challenge himself and create an EP of original work just to see what it's like so he could further inform his perspective. Like, could you imagine him dropping Mixolydian scale in a review and effectively using it for his argumentation? And also maybe not suggesting that people should kill themselves? Professional icon! He'd be unstoppable. I don't know, this is all just food for thought, I guess. Just my opinion, alleged. Please leave me alone. I don't want another Adam McIntyre situation on my hands. What I'm trying to get at here is, internet critics these days, maybe it's due to a lack of professionalism guidelines, maybe it's due to the fact that, because they are a one-person show, they can act however they want without consequence, but typically internet critics these days tend to blur the lines of criticism and personal attack. And that vagueness is subjective, but I find more often than not that this fosters a hostile audience in tandem to a lack of curiosity and meaningful engagement with art. I believe work should be experienced for itself. And when it comes to Abrams, I think people online tend to prefer the spectacle of watching people bash her and dunk on her music. They don't like her, and now this well-informed person that they respect is also shitting on her. That must mean I'm right! Yay! I deserve my cookie! Just let the damn woman cook. I hope to God she comes back with a vengeance on her 4th album. But I wouldn't be telling you the whole story if we just put the blame on internet critics for the current state of music discourse. In fact, a lot of what happens is due to peer influence, especially in fandom spaces, because this isn't really a video about Gracie Abrams or critics at all. This is a video about...
Side D. The stands.
Stan Twitter. The bane of my existence. Remember, I got my start on youtube.com.gov.uk in the drag race world. I am no stranger to annoying people online. If we're gonna talk about pop music in the year of our Lord 2026, I think we need to address the fact that fandoms are completely out of control. If you take a look at our internet ecosystem, it's bots and stan accounts all the way down. Every day on social media, there was always some new intense argument about a woman in music. Right now, as of recording, it's currently about Ariana Grande's decision to step away from the public eye for her mental health due to the intense scrutiny and backlash around her physical appearance. Often the most intense and inflammatory opinions are the ones that are pushed to the forefront of the algorithm. Everyone sees it, everyone gets mad, and then begins the hyper-aggressive arguments. Stan wars, if you will. Why does this happen? Why does everything escalate to such an intense degree? This is a hornet's nest I'm treading very carefully around, but in an April 2023 study published around fandom wars in the K-pop sphere by Dr. Lambok Siombing of President University, it found that a huge reason why these internet wars break out is because of the emotional connection to our idols.
Fans often feel deeply connected to their favorite groups and can invest a lot of time and emotion into supporting them. This emotional investment can make fans feel defensive and protective of their group, and they may even feel the need to defend their group at all costs. Fans may perceive criticism of their favorite group as a threat and may feel the need to defend their group at all costs, which can lead to aggressive behavior towards fans of other groups.
Art is so intensely tied to identity. It's not uncommon to hear someone say, "This song saved my life," because for some people, that's literal. Not enjoying or even insulting, dismissing something we're fond of can feel like a personal attack on our humanity. I think that's why people who are so unstable or isolated tend to cling to cults of personality. When we don't have a strong sense of self, we project our fantasies of grandeur onto the people we look up to most. When I was a Swiftie, I was no stranger to people judging me as a person for liking her music. When you're constantly exposed to backhanded compliments or insults about your taste, at some point it becomes grating. Now, some people, like me, can take it and mind their own business, but those of us who are not so confident in ourselves are more likely to take it personally. This becomes increasingly intense when pop discourse is intertwined with socio-political issues like political party affiliation or queerness. As individuals, we are quite powerless against governments and global crises, but the illusion of control feels more tangible in fandom spaces. In the past, I have felt like I was making real, tangible change by engaging in this discourse. Now, often these fandom wars tend to stay contained in the realm of the internet. I mean, that's why I often suggest to people just to log off when things get too intense. But there have been some instances of people taking things a little too far. In March of 2024, a man by the name of David Corrales got into a heated Twitter argument with an Arizona teenager named Kenzo. The debate started over who was a better artist, Nicki Minaj or Dua Lipa. Damn, that has aged poorly. That's super fucking coconuts. Now, in typical teenage fashion, Kenzo stupidly leaked his address online and egged on his detractors. What he didn't anticipate was someone actually taking him up on that. Trigger warning, cringe.
I go at 4:30 and I'll come at 6 p.m. And by 7 p.m., this fight should happen. If my math is mathing. Cardi tanked. Nicki Minaj is the queen of rap. Fuck Dua Lipa.
You went through TSA. You flew over here to Phoenix. Ordered an Uber to my house to fight me.
Okay, so let me walk you through this. A legal adult bought plane tickets from California to Arizona to verbally assault a minor over pop music. God, this is making me crave a drink so bad. Barbs are not nearly as terrifying as they used to be, especially since their god queen has gone MAGA. But back in the day, people were scared shitless of criticizing Minaj for this exact reason. Even now, you'll still have Swifties sending death threats, or BTS Army doxing you, or Blinks wishing an incurable STI upon you and your kin. This fear of stan culture has also deeply harmed the way critics and journalists engage with artists. In Stan Wars, The Death of Critique, Jerk magazine writer Navya Varma writes,
Podcasts like Therapist, Las Culturistas, and Call Her Daddy increasingly prioritize entertaining interviews where they fangirl over their guest celebrities rather than ask them questions that challenge them. This reflects a broader shift in media consumption. There is a growing demand for personality, access, and drama as opposed to criticism.
One of the most egregious examples of this toothless arts and entertainment journalism comes from an episode of Call Her Daddy in September 2024 when the guest, can you guess it, was Katy Perry. Perry received intense backlash earlier that year for creating the female empowerment anthem, Woman's World, alongside alleged abuser and producer, Dr. Luke. In a pathetic attempt at starting dialogue, host Alex Cooper went in.
I know a lot of people have expressed disappointment and were really upset that you decided to involve Dr. Luke on this album. Why did you choose to work with him?
Look, I understand that it started a lot of conversations, and he was one of many collaborators that I collaborated with, but the reality is it comes from me. The truth is I wrote these songs from my experience of my whole life going through this metamorphosis. And he was one of the people to help facilitate all that. One of the writers, one of the producers.
I wonder if journalists weren't so scared to criticize artists these days, we might have someone at Barbara Walters' caliber actually lead a better interrogation against her. I understand the inclination to support and uplift the artists you platform, make a nice, easy, cozy space to talk and chat and make the fans feel like they're just part of the conversation and hanging out with their best bud. But critique and deeper conversations actually encourage critical thought, insight, and growth. And artists cannot get better at their craft or have important conversations around their thoughts, political ideologies, and needs if everyone is just glazing them. This culture of fear of internet psychos has helped contribute to a world where art and artistry come second to cults of personality. Like, no wonder we can't have level-headed conversations about art anymore, because nobody actually cares about the creative process. They care about parasocial engagement. I know I was critical of the Swiftologist and Fantano in my last section, but I still do have a lot of compassion for them. Imagine making an entire career around your passion of discussing music and culture, only to be constantly met with vitriol from weirdos online. To have your character constantly questioned and dissected just because you say a song is boring or an album is bad. In fandom spaces, sometimes it feels like talking about things you don't like is equivalent to wishing a violent end on someone. Stan culture, in my opinion, is just another modern witch hunt. We worship our divas of choice and then go on the offensive against anyone we deem to be a threat to our God Queen's position. Taylor Swift outsold your faves. Megan Thee Stallion is in the Kia asylum. BB Rexa is in her flop era. I mean, I don't really care about BB Rexa, but still. I cannot believe that I, a queer socialist, am going up to bat so hard for such a privileged cishet white woman, but truly, the hate Abrams gets feels very disproportionate. And if you think the hatred she gets is bad, imagine being a woman of color in the public eye, or a non-cishet femme person. Discourse can be helpful. We can absolutely criticize art and the people making it. But let's be honest, people who discourse about entertainment don't actually really care that much about the work that is being made. They seek a catharsis for the misery and powerlessness in their own lives. And Abrams is the perfect punching bag. Misogyny is the oldest prejudice in the world, and gay men are still men. Even if they are a pop girlie's biggest defender, they are far from immune. I'm sick of this culture we live in, where persona supersedes art. Nobody wants to talk about the way this song or a movie or whatever made them feel, or the words, or the gifts and the talent. They want to knock someone down. They want to feel superior, maybe to a person of power, maybe to their peers. And if you haven't noticed, this kind of bullshit can have dire consequences. The snowflake never has to feel responsible for the avalanche. As Ray once sung in I Will Overcome.
It's funny, some people say I remind them of Amy. Some spit through their keyboards, I'll never amount. And the evil and insults, the arrows from your tongue, is the same devils you tortured her with anyhow.
I wish we lived in a culture where we could create, express, and converse. I wish we didn't care so much about who outsold who, and the charts, and whatever. I wish we could work together as fans and artists to dismantle this wicked system, rather than just constantly disparage each other. From Britney, to Janet, to Gracie, to Amy, to Rena, to so many other countless women in music. When does it fucking end? When does it ever fucking end? Hi. I'm Archie Merc. I am 1 month sober.
Side Omega. Thank you, Gracie.
So, I live in Seattle now. It's been years in the making, and I could not be more grateful for the change. Most people won't understand this unless you live here, but Seattle is like the most beautiful city in the world, especially in the summertime. There is an abundance of nature and gorgeous views. Puget Sound and Union Bay are just absolutely radiant. There are so many different kinds of neighborhoods and people, so many different kinds of subcultures. I have never felt more safe in a place. I'd be lying if I said it was an easy transition, though. In fact, this whole year has just been transition periods. Transitioning to life without my grandpa, transitioning to life without my long-term partner, fuck him, transitioning to life in a big city. I got what I wanted, you know, my big queer city life, but external changes can only really do so much. To cope with the stress and grief of, like, the last year, I fell into pretty aggressive binge drinking. Doesn't feel great saying that out loud. That's part of the reason why it's taken so long for me to get the Archie Merc project back on its feet. In addition to all these massive life changes, I've been working so hard to get my shit together and just be. It's funny, I didn't necessarily think it was a problem until I stopped. But especially since last October, I would just have one drink and just keep going. I'd go out to a bar or a club, have a couple cocktails, lie and say I was at my limit, and then I just went home and kept going. On days I was feeling particularly miserable or sad, I would angrily throw back screwdrivers until I felt like nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. I'm glad I got out of it before things got much, much worse, but yeah. I lost a lot of time to this shit. And it fucking sucks. And I was really good at hiding it too, which, if you know me personally, that should terrify you. It scares the shit out of me. I knew I had other projects or shit to do, so I just sucked it up and kept moving forward. I mean, how could it possibly be a problem if I'm functioning so well? It feels like a nightmare that I didn't realize I was having until I woke up. And when I first stopped, I gave all these half-truths and said, oh, I'm stopping for my health. I can't take over the world hungover. It's just not fun anymore. I've had my fun with it. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, real convincing, Archie. I was so embarrassed and ashamed. And even now, I still am embarrassed and ashamed because substance use disorders are so heavy, and most people don't want to be around someone like that, even in recovery. Even now, I know that being open about this, people will just not treat me the same. They might look at me with pity, or be softer with me and try to coddle me, or they just might avoid me like the plague altogether and keep me at arm's length. And that's just something that I'm gonna have to deal with for the rest of my life. I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, and frankly, I don't want to be anyone's counselor. I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm terrified that I'm using the wrong language and I'm saying something harmful. And more importantly, I'm not exactly excited for the way people in my personal life are going to be receiving this. My experience with disorder looks so different from everyone else that I'm honestly terrified that some people are gonna say, but you never looked like you had a problem. Are you sure you're not just doing this for attention? Oh, everyone binge drinks from time to time. Who doesn't go through periods of unhealthy coping mechanisms? You know what? You try drinking yourself into a stupor almost every night for a year, and then you come back and tell me how that feels. And the thing is, like, it didn't even feel conscious. Like, it was like my body was just craving the high. Like, I would have one drink, it would feel so good, and then I just wanted to keep that feeling going. And so I just kept throwing it back. That's really all there is to it. It just felt like my body was craving that feeling of numbness and release, or even euphoria. Everyone's sobriety journey is going to look vastly different, and right now, I just kind of want to say where I'm at, and then do the rest in private for now. I bring all this up because in place of alcohol, I have turned to art to soothe me. Let's go back to Abrams. If you look at critic scores right now, this past record is her lowest rated work by far. In comparison to The Secret of Us, her sophomore album, which has an 80 on Metacritic, Daughter from Hell has a 63. Not exactly what someone would call a critical darling, and yet this is exactly the album I need right now. To me, Daughter from Hell is an album about getting exactly what you wanted, and it only making shit worse. A lot of the songs are about her and her mental health in relation to the pressures of newfound exposure and fame and success. To me, it doesn't sound like bland wallowing like what Anthony Fantano says. It sounds like a woman crying for help. And sometimes us artists need to make these deeply self-indulgent, sad bodies of work to get through those dark periods to survive. See also The Great Impersonator. Now, you, dear viewer, might be thinking at home, she is a successful rich white lady with a massive support system. How the fuck can her problems be that bad? And fair enough, she's not a survivor of war, yet. World War III is on the horizon! Nor is she actively impoverished or marginalized. These are true. But aren't we all human at the end of the day? Like, don't we experience the same pain, different font? When I listen to tracks like Cold Goodbyes, Look at My Life, or Good Reason, I feel understood. Sometimes those songs express what I'm feeling better than I can. And isn't that the reason why we're drawn to music in the first place? To soundtrack important moments of our lives and express what our own monologue or thoughts cannot say out loud. We look to art to soundtrack our lives, to be understood, to see ourselves reflected in the other. At the end of the day, you can critically evaluate a body of work all you want, but no numerical score or snarky review can take away the way something makes you feel. And Gracie Abrams makes me feel. A lot, actually. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that Hit the Wall made me emotional, but the lyric from the album, Daughter from Hell, that made me, like, stop the song and sit in profound, prolonged silence was off of Look of My Life, when she sings. And maybe if I smile enough, I'll get away with giving up. I'll move across the country just to judge myself like just as much. Yeah? Abrams shows on this record that even if your wildest dreams come true, it'll never be enough to heal you. In fact, the newfound scrutiny might make it 10 times worse. My first video on YouTube was on RuPaul's Drag Race Global All-Stars. I didn't think it was going to do very well. After like the first day, I had like 2,000 views, and I was satisfied with that. And then a couple days later, it blew up overnight. It's now sitting at almost 100,000 views. It is my most recognized work to date. And that is the worst thing that has ever happened to my career. Aside from the fact that I can't make any money off of it thanks to copyright, I feel this immense amount of pressure to constantly outdo that video. Every time I put out a body of work, I think to myself, oh, maybe this will be the time. And then it never happens, and I'm always left disappointed. And this feeling is only exasperated by the fact that I don't want to constantly make videos on Drag Race. I don't want to talk about the same topic all the time ad nauseum. That bores me. And this sucks because a vast majority of my subscribers are from the Drag Race sphere. They expect me to constantly make the same video to feed them, to satisfy them. And I, as an artist and a creative, simply do not want to do that. I want to create things that are true to me and where I'm at in my life, what interests me, what satisfies me. But the algorithm and my subscribers, I'm assuming, like me at my best when I'm talking about silly people in wigs. When Abrams says, I got what I wanted, it doesn't sit right, I understand that better than most people. At the end of the day, we can debate and discuss art until we're blue in the face, but honestly, most of these conversations are not really that productive. There is value in criticism. The role of the critic, hello, is incredibly important. Yes, and I am incredibly exhausted of this culture of policing other people's tastes. Now, don't get it twisted. There are objectively awful things that we should criticize and judge people for. Creating AI-generated work, actively supporting musicians and creatives that are terrible, like Nicki Minaj and Kid Rock. But if someone stands a Nepobaby's mediocre work, girl, whatever. So, where do we go now? Well, for starters, I think we need to keep conversations around nepotism centered on systems of power. Gracie Abrams can absolutely be used as an example of how these systems unfairly give advantages to certain people over marginalized creatives that are either people of color, trans, queer, disabled, immigrant, etc. We should absolutely criticize the way that works and seek to dismantle it collectively, and also maybe do it in a way that's not going for the fucking jugular. Secondly, in tandem to these conversations, I want to encourage us to spend more time celebrating creatives we love and uplifting art that is important and meaningful to us, rather than constantly picking fights and debating over who's outsold whose fave matters more, who is the better musician, which artist deserves the award more. Seriously, who fucking cares? And by participating in these debates, we are only further upholding a capitalist mindset. These are arbitrary measurements, right? And your fave cannot outsell if you're spending all your free time debating and fighting people online, not streaming and supporting their work, right? Except for Ed Sheeran, that's one that I'll never understand. You know what? I take that back. Let's channel all of that negativity and rage into whacking men in music. They're the real enemy here. They do, a quarter of the work with, twice the exposure and success. Fuck that shit. Male mediocrity is the real enemy here. Morgan Wallen is the real enemy here. Thirdly, we need to adopt a much less intense approach to discussing art. If you don't like Abrams, that's perfectly fine. Nobody is forcing you to like her, and they shouldn't be. But also, in that same regard, not every song, piece of work, movie, TV show, album, artist, whatever, requires a fucking hateful think piece. It's exhausting. Honestly, if you don't have a really good reason for disliking it, or can't form a consistent, coherent argument and defend it, I honestly think you should just take the L and move forward. You're not a marketing expert. You're not Barbara Walters. You're Brad from West Hollywood. Fourthly, form your own goddamn opinions. I don't care. You are a person with thoughts, wants, feelings, and needs. Do not let your peers or your favorite internet personalities be your only sole informants on something. Take a body of work and listen to it. Sit with it. Take notes on it. Write a story about it. Sing along to it. Watch your favorite scenes over again. I don't know. This could apply to any multitude of things. But who knows? You might have a completely different takeaway if you just let your biases go and sit with it. Like this video. To paraphrase a popular tweet, Gracie Abrams is actually pretty good if you don't have a bunch of annoying twinks online yelling in your ear about how bad she is. Fifth and finally, misogyny is the oldest prejudice in the world, and most of us are constantly in the process of deprogramming it. I mean, hey, I'm guilty of it too. Despite appearances, your humble host is far from perfect. Many conversations around women in entertainment are just thinly veiled misogyny. Read The Kia Asylum, which Gabby Bell released a fantastic video on earlier this year. And I personally believe that Gracie Abrams is one of the more common victims of that. It is not inherently problematic to say that a work by a woman is bad or you don't like it, but I do want to encourage us to think a little more consciously about why we don't like something. Do you not like it because it's bland, it doesn't speak to you, or you can't relate to it? Or do you just not like her? Being critical is good. Being a hater, to an extent, is good. But let's also try to keep things into perspective. For me, Gracie Abrams is what got me through my first month of sobriety. No amount of discourse or criticism can take that away from me. I am incredibly grateful that she has been a part of the soundtrack of my recovery. And if she ever sees this, thanks. Your work helped me a lot. It really did. Oh god, I'm gonna cry. Fuck. Keep it together, Archie. Save it for when you're at home. You know, there is this really aggravating performative culture of healing around us right now, if you can't tell. People are saying, I'm healing my inner child, I'm joy maxing, I'm on my woo-woo shit, and fair enough. Do what you gotta do, man. But in that same vein,
I can't help but wonder if we're constantly looking to be healed, we're always going to be chasing a target that frankly just does not exist, or is at least always moving. As a wise friend once told me, everyone's trying to celebrate the peaks, but flowers grow in the valley. I feel this immense pressure to be fixed now, but I have my whole life ahead of me to make mistakes and fall on my face and hurt people, hurt myself, but then grow and become better from it and heal relationships and get better at making art or whatever. Like, I have so much time to learn. I have so much more ahead of me. What good does this pressure do? Feeling this need to constantly be a better version of myself, to be more mature, wise, healed. What does that do? Judging myself for having a bad day or regressing or feeling like I'm not enough or not being the most mature? Girl, fuck that. I'm tired of this culture of people pushing me to be better, or this internal monologue of saying you're not doing enough, you're not healed enough. It's too much. I'm done. I'm fucking exhausted. I don't want to be healed anymore. I just want to feel okay. This isn't what I want. It's only how you feel. Openly admit you're far away from healing, and I hate to pull the plug, but I think I get your deal. I finally know better than to wait for you back here. And I hope you know I don't think you're a bad guy or you're damaged. Took you too long, so I had to move along. It's the saddest, you're a good kid, could have had you, but I didn't. I can laugh now, how I tried to play that part. I know that you're removed, I can feel it when we talk. You start to let me in, but then you shut it off. And it's half of you that hurts sometimes, the half that I don't get. I swear that I'm not mad at you, but I can't share your bed now. I can't imagine when you go home, does he follow like an echo, like your shadow? You can try, but you can't run from the truth of what you both made, that you blew up on a Tuesday. How does pain taste when it's shrapnel in your tongue? It's a pain that I caught you at a bad time. It's a shame that I memorized your outline. You were straight up with me, you were so kind, but I knew what you knew, honey, great minds. It was harsh cause I lost what I wanted. I was brave when I kissed you in London. We're collateral here, man, we got hit. Hope you find somewhere safe for your baggage. Every page that I wrote, you were on it. Feel you deep in my bones, you're the current. And I show no restraint, it was something I was scared of till you made me love it. If you find yourself out, if there is a right time, chances are I'll be here, we could share a lifeline. If you feel like falling, catch me on the way down. Never been less empty, all I feel is free now. If you find yourself out,